Hello, listeners. Today is January 10th, 2025, and this is Voice Over Work and Audiobook Sampler. Where do you listen? Welcome back to another episode where we take a journey into the world of audiobooks. Today we're presenting the chapter-by-chapter preview of The Power of Action by Daniel Walter. This book explores the profound impact self-awareness can have on achieving personal and professional success, guiding you through practical strategies to unlock your potential and live a more fulfilling life. You can find The Power of Action in both physical and audiobook formats on Amazon, as well as on iTunes and Audible. For more information about Daniel Walter and his work, you can visit him on Facebook at author Daniel Walter. For now, let's delve into this chapter-by-chapter preview of the book, The Power of Action. Chapter 1, The Awakening, Self-Awareness and Acknowledging Your Weakness. To know yourself, you must sacrifice the illusion that you already do. Veronika Tugaleva. Everyone loves sleeping. There's nothing like that awesome, warm feeling when you're tucked under a duvet getting the rest your body craves so much. But when that alarm goes off, the first thing most people do is reach up and shut it off. Why? Because you've been jolted out of your slumber and you have absolutely no desire to get out of bed. You are engulfed in that comfortable feeling, and if you could stay there forever, you would. However, whether it's work, the kids, or life, you have no choice but to get up. The same is true when one has a spiritual awakening. Most people are sleepwalking. They live on autopilot, doing everything society has programmed them to do. You go to school, get an education, get a job, and work until retirement, during which time you might have snippets of fulfillment, but deep down, there's a massive void you don't know how to fill. You see, humans are made up of body, mind, and spirit. We are aware of our bodies and our minds, but the spirit, the inner part of you that knows all things, most people are unaware of. As far as I'm concerned, the spirit is the most important part of us, but it is never fully activated because we live in such a superficial world. We've been taught to be so focused on our outer appearance that our inner being is totally neglected. But every so often, an alarm bell rings, whether it's through a book we read, a podcast we listened to, or a film we watched, and we get the feeling that there's more to life than we are currently living. However, because we are so comfortable in our slumber, we hit the snooze button and go back to sleep. There are very few people who ever hear the alarm bell and get up, which is why only 1% of the population owns half of the world's wealth. The question is, what does it take to enable you to arise from your slumber? There are several answers to this question, and one of them is self-awareness. What is self-awareness? Self-awareness is a deep concept that involves having the ability to understand yourself. It involves more than self-recognition. Introspection is the foundation of self-awareness. Self-awareness means being able to critically evaluate your thoughts, actions, and emotions. It requires a person have a deep understanding of their personal values, strengths, weaknesses, and motivations. This skill is required for personal development, but it also plays an important role in how people interact with each other. At the center of self-awareness is the ability to navigate one's internal state. A person who engages in the practice of self-reflection is capable of identifying thought patterns and the behaviors that manifest from them, which assists in developing a clearer picture of their identity and personality. It's important to mention that once a person becomes self-aware, it does not necessarily mean that the negative things that they've learned about themselves are fixed. Chapter 2, Ditch the victim mentality. Success is for everyone. Those with a perpetual victim mindset tend to create the situations from which they suffer. Steve Maraboli. Do you always feel as if the world is out to get you, or that you don't have control over the things that happen to you? Or do you feel that no matter how hard you try, you seem to attract negative situations? If you're constantly blaming other people for the bad things that happen to you, you may suffer from a victim mentality. It's a mindset that makes you feel completely powerless over your life and keeps you stuck in a cycle of defeat. I used to have a victim mentality, and it was a miserable existence. But when I broke free from it, my entire life changed. Are you ready to release yourself from the shackles of the victim mentality? Keep listening to find out how. What is the victim mentality? People with the victim mentality feel as if the world is against them and that there is a never-ending conspiracy to make their lives a living hell. Whether it's their parents, children, co-workers, or friends, they are suspicious of everyone and will often start unnecessary arguments due to paranoia. When something goes wrong and it is clearly their fault, they won't take responsibility for their actions. Even if there is something they can do to help rectify the situation, they won't do it because they believe they are exempt from blame. Additionally, they take everything personally. They can overhear a conversation and jump to the conclusion that people are bad-mouthing them when the discussion has absolutely nothing to do with them. People with a victim mentality always feel resentful and think things like, "What did I ever do to deserve such an awful life?" Childhood trauma is the root cause of a victim mentality. When children are not taught effective coping strategies at the time when the trauma occurred, it leads to the belief that life just happens to people, and they are not responsible for any of it. And while this is true to a certain extent, the thought process is flawed. It is correct that you are not responsible for your trauma. Regardless of the type of trauma inflicted, it was not your fault. However, healing is your responsibility because no one can do that for you. If it was a person who caused the traumatic event, they're not going to hold your hand through the healing process because, in most cases, as far as they're concerned, they did not do anything wrong. Abusers have no empathy and have a total disregard for their victims. However, the moment you realize that you are the only person who can heal your wounds, life gets a lot easier. Signs you have a victim mentality. If you're not sure whether you have a victim mentality, here are some of the main signs. Constant blaming. Instead of accepting responsibility for where you are in life, you point the finger at everyone else. If you failed your exams, it was because you had to work part-time to support yourself through college because your parents were not rich enough. If you cheated on your partner, it was because they were not. Chapter 3. It starts in the mind. Think and grow rich. A man is but the product of his thoughts. What he thinks he becomes. Mahatma Gandhi. What is the most powerful weapon in the world? I always ask my audiences this question, and the most common answer I get is the nuclear weapon. While I understand that someone would say this because one nuclear bomb can kill millions of people, it is the wrong answer. The most powerful weapon in the world is the human mind, because that is where the idea for the nuclear weapon was birthed. Everything that was ever created on this earth started in the mind. The mind is capable of imagining, and then the person who conceives the idea works to create it. Using the same principle, if you can envision yourself living the life of your dreams, you can also create it. In his book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill said, "Whatever your mind can conceive and believe it can achieve." This is a bold statement, but for many it has proven true. Let's take a look at why. Thoughts are energy. The world we live in is one big ball of energy. We are surrounded by energy particles, and they form together to create matter. Everything is energy, including your thoughts, words, and actions. Whatever you think about becomes your reality, because the energy from your thoughts connects with the energy from your environment, and it is this process that creates your reality. The more energy you direct towards your thoughts, words, and actions, the faster you'll see a manifestation. In order to change your life, you must first understand the role you play in the energetic sphere. The question is, what type of energy are you putting into your thoughts? There are only two types of energy, high and low, and your ability to manifest depends on the level of energy you put out. Energy travels at certain speeds. The lower the energy, the slower it travels. The higher the energy, the faster it travels. Water is a substance. When its energy is low, it forms ice, and when its energy is high, it turns into vapor. Heat is high energy, and when it makes contact with ice, it will melt into water and eventually turn into vapor. The transformation only takes place when the energy is added. If your thoughts are of a low energy, to change them, you'll need to add some high energy to those thoughts. But before we get into how to do that, let's take a look at why you have low energy thoughts. How limiting beliefs are affecting you. When I remember that only 1% of the population earns 50% of the world's wealth, I become convinced that the majority of people hold limiting beliefs about themselves. Limiting beliefs are the negative beliefs we hold about ourselves that prevent us from reaching our full potential. These beliefs are false and fear-based, and they stop us from taking opportunities that could lift us to the next level. For example, a person who holds a limiting belief that they are not good at public speaking will turn the offer down when it is presented to them, because they've convinced themselves they will be a failure. A negative mindset is also a symptom of limiting belief. Chapter 4, The Power of Order. Get your house organized. Getting organized is a sign of self-respect. Gabrielle Bernstein. When I started my healing journey, it seemed as if everything was going well. I was reading a lot of books, working on my mental health, and I was deep into writing my first book. But for some reason, I felt as if something was blocking me from reaching my full potential, and I couldn't figure it out. I had a chat with my mentor, James, and he agreed to come over to my apartment to investigate the issue further. This was the first time he'd been to my place, and as soon as he walked in the door, he hadn't even sat down, he said, "You need to give this apartment a deep clean." I was pretty offended, as I thought my apartment was tidy enough. As far as I was concerned, everything was where it was supposed to be. It was a lot cleaner than the homes of most men I knew. But not according to James. He slowly walked around the flat, opening cupboards, closets, the fridge, and running his finger over the dust that had accumulated on the tops of cabinets. After he completed his inspection, he sat me down and had a long discussion with me about the importance of cleanliness and order. He recommended a few books I should read, and he left. What James said made sense, but I wanted to look into it myself, so I bought the books and read them. And boy, was I shocked. What I learned and put into practice changed my life. And that's what I want to discuss in this chapter. What clutter does to your mental health. Let's start by defining clutter. Clutter is all the things in your home that do not have a home. The clothes that are hanging on the back of your door because there's no space in the closet. The saucepans sitting on the kitchen counters because there's no space in the cupboards. The books that are stacked on the end of the dining table because you don't have a bookshelf. It's the drawer full of junk that you keep filling up because it's easier to throw stuff in there. Clutter is the stuff you know you don't need, but don't know what to do with. It's easy for things to pile up because we're constantly buying stuff we don't need. I was guilty of always giving in to the 2-for-1 bargains on things like cleaning products and tinned foods when I didn't need them. I would then store them in the pantry or cupboard and never use them. I was always buying clothes I didn't need because the items were on sale, but I would never wear them. People who are surrounded by clutter are extremely disorganized, and it's often a sign of an underlying problem. Mine was stress and procrastination. I could never bring myself to start anything because I was just too stressed, and so I dealt with things by stashing everything away. Once I organized my home, I simplified my life, and things began to flow effortlessly, and I found that I was more energetic and happy. What I learned was that clutter has a negative effect on your mental health. Here's how. Affects your mood. Clutter has a negative effect on your mood. Looking at all the things you know need your attention is frustrating. But that frustrates. Chapter 5. Write the vision and make it plain. Goal setting with a purpose. A dream becomes a goal when action is taken towards its achievement. Bo Bennett. Have you ever attempted to drive to an unfamiliar destination without using a map or navigation system? I'm assuming that everyone will answer no to this question, because it would be a complete waste of time and money, and no one in their right mind would do such a thing. But just for a moment, I want you to imagine leaving your house knowing the address you want to go to, but not knowing how to get there. You would end up driving around aimlessly, hoping and wishing to find the place. Unless you arrived there by fluke, after a few hours burning gas, you'd go back home. But what happens when you type the address into the navigation system? It gives you directions, so you leave your house, follow the directions, and arrive at your destination with no problems. The same rule applies to goal setting. As mentioned, 92% of people who set goals don't achieve them. That's because out of the 3% of Americans who do set goals, only 1% write them down and create a plan detailing how to achieve those goals. The people who don't create a plan are like the person in the car trying to get to a destination without directions. They drive around in circles and end up giving up. I used to be that person. As I've mentioned several times, every year I would set a New Year's resolution to write my book. But I never wrote it down, nor did I create a plan. However, as soon as I wrote my goal down and developed a plan for it, I wrote the book in less than a year. If you're tired of giving up on your goals because you don't know how to turn your dreams into a reality, I'm going to teach you how to set goals the smart way. Lifetime goals. Most people live for the moment, and they're not thinking about the future. But if you're serious about creating the life of your dreams, setting lifetime goals is essential. Have you not noticed how quickly time flies? I remember being in my 20s like it was yesterday, and because I didn't have a plan, my 30s slipped through my fingers. Before I knew it, I was almost 40 and dissatisfied with life. I have a good friend called Charles. He's 25 years old and a multi-millionaire commercial real estate developer. When I met him, I was slightly intimidated because when I was his age, I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. I wanted to know how he became so wealthy. One day over dinner, Charles told me his story. He comes from a very wealthy family. His father rents yachts to the rich and famous. His parents instilled discipline in him from a young age. As soon as he could read, he had to read 1 book a week and explain what the book was about to his parents. Reading became a habit, and to this day, he reads 1 book a week. From the age of 5, Charles had to set 3 goals, create a vision board, and a plan of how he intended on achieving those goals. Every year, without fail, he achieved all 3 goals. He did chores. Chapter 6. Ditch the distractions. How to maintain your focus. Work is hard, distractions are plentiful, and time is short. Adam Hochschild. Now you've decided to change your life and start working to achieve your goals. The distractions will intensify, and you'll feel as if you're being attacked on every side. I can't tell you whether this is a universal principle or not, but I can tell you with confidence that you are going to be distracted. You'll feel as if there are invisible hands pulling you away from achieving your goals. This is all a part of the process, and it is essential that you learn how to eliminate distractions and maintain your focus, or you won't be able to get anything done. I believe the only person capable of holding you back from success is you, and one of the quickest routes to failure is distractions and your inability to focus. You can't stop the distractions from coming, but you can learn how to prevent them from distracting you. What are distractions? Well, I thought I'd start with defining the term distractions because I've learned along this journey a lot of people don't actually know what they are. Distractions are the obstacles you encounter throughout your day that steer you in a different direction. It's your responsibility to take control of those distractions and refuse to allow your time to be stolen from you. It's about being completely focused on the road in front of you and not allowing anything to get in your way. Today, being distracted is the norm. People laugh and joke about it all the time, but in reality, it's not funny. Whether it's social media, TV, friends, or family members, there's always something pulling us away from what really matters: our productivity, our focus, and our ability to get stuff done. It is extremely difficult to keep your eyes on the prize when you're surrounded by distractions. Imagine you're a boxer, and the day of your world championship fight, there's not one opponent in the ring, but 10, all throwing punches at you from different directions. There's no way you're going to win that fight. But that's what fighting against distractions is like. Instead of dodging the blows, we try and do everything at once. We have a fancy name for this. It's called multitasking. Everyone thinks it's cool to multitask because on the surface, it looks like we're getting loads of stuff done at once. However, the American Psychological Association states that when we bounce from task to task, we are 40% less productive because each time we move to a different task, the brain needs to redirect and readjust. Additionally, distractions take up an average of 2.1 hours of our time every day. Sure, we know what the typical distractions are: phone notification, kids wanting our attention, spouse wanting our attention, social media and TV. But let's take a deeper look. When we're stressed, anxious, and worried, it affects our ability to concentrate. In this chapter, you'll learn a lot more about these attention thieves and how to protect yourself against them. Distractions are like that annoying fly buzzing around. Chapter 7. Go all out. Forget about work-life balance for now. The key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. Stephen Covey. Oh my goodness, you need a break. It's not healthy to work as hard as you do. Did you know that overworking causes heart conditions? These were the comments my friends and family made when I started getting serious about achieving my goals. While I know they had my best interests at heart, they had no idea the level of self-sacrifice and hard work it takes to achieve your goals. Of course, I tuned out the noise and kept it moving. However, it was annoying nonetheless. I really want you to understand how important it is to prioritize your goals and stop listening to friends and family. No shade, no tea, but they most likely haven't achieved anything in life and probably never will. The bottom line is that you can't afford to listen to people who haven't reached the level of success you're aspiring to. Going on vacation and shopping sprees should be the last thing on your mind right now. This season of your life is going to be difficult, but I can assure you that once you achieve your goals, you'll look back and say it was all worth it. For now, I want you to forget about work-life balance. What does a healthy work-life balance look like? Well, the world is obsessed with having a healthy work-life balance. It's being discussed on the news, social media, and every media outlet there is. But why is it so important? And what does a healthy work-life balance look like? Well, let me speak for myself first. When I had a 9-to-5 job, I was obsessed with having a healthy work-life balance because I hated my job and the extra effort I had to put in if I wanted to be seen as a good employee and get promoted for more pay, which technically wasn't more pay because you'd be working more hours. My friends and I would spend a lot of time on the phone complaining about the extra hours we were asked to work and how we were not paid overtime. For us, the difference between working until 6 p.m. instead of 5 p.m. was astronomical. It meant that I was stuck in rush hour traffic for 2 hours instead of 1. By the time I got home, I was exhausted and unable to do anything except watch TV, scroll, and talk on the phone. Working in a job I hated was a nightmare. Even if I had been able to leave at 5 p.m. every day, I doubt I would ever have been able to say I had a healthy work-life balance, because the reality of the situation was that whether I left work at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., I did the same thing, waste my evening doing unproductive stuff. So where was the balance? I don't believe a healthy work-life balance exists when you don't like your job, because there's nothing healthy about not liking your job. And according to research, 45% of American workers wouldn't wish their job on their worst enemy. Therefore, the problem isn't about balance, but about job. Chapter 8. Motivation is not enough. How to keep going when you don't feel like it. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill. Motivation is an emotion, and it's not going to be the driving force behind your success. Because motivation is an emotion, it's fleeting. Have you ever watched a motivational film, listened to a speech or a song, and felt all fired up and ready to start working on your goals? After watching The Pursuit of Happiness, I was so motivated that I immediately packed my bag and went to the gym in the middle of the night. But 2 days later, I was back to my old habits of eating takeout and pigging out on the sofa in front of the TV. What happened? I wasn't motivated anymore. So, what do you do when your motivation runs out? you keep working. What is motivation? Motivation is something that takes place inside of us. Some experts describe it as a drive. Others describe it as a need. Either way, it's a mental state connected to change. When we're motivated, we're fueled with the energy required to do the work necessary to achieve our goals. Motivation fuels all sorts of behaviors, such as the need to eat, drink, get the body of your dreams, attract the opposite sex, and much more. It sounds simple enough, right? But it's not. There are two types of motivation, extrinsic and intrinsic. Extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is about the reward we're going to receive for doing something. These rewards can include money, a promotion, or avoiding punishment. Extrinsic motivation motivates us to do what is required of us so we can get what we want. Intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation involves completing a task because we want to. It gives us a sense of satisfaction and we enjoy doing it. People who are intrinsically motivated are not thinking about external rewards. Now, I want you to cast your mind back to the last time you had something to do and you failed to do it. Maybe you decided to start practicing meditation every morning, or to submit an application for a job before the deadline. Did you fail to do it because you had decided that it didn't matter anymore? That's not the case for most people. A lack of motivation was the reason you didn't do what you said you were going to do. As mentioned, motivation is an emotion, and it doesn't show up because you need it. So, as you've probably learned while lying on your sofa scrolling through social media, no magical sensation is going to arrive to get you up and working. It's your job to motivate yourself. When I realized how unmotivated I was, I panicked. I believed I was never going to become successful because I wasn't on fire all the time. There were many times when I literally had to drag myself off the couch to get stuff done, but that's because it's in our nature to take the path of least resistance. In his book, The Path of Least Resistance, Robert Fritz states that human beings are no different to the elements in nature. He states that energy moves along the... Chapter 9. Developing Discipline. Nothing happens without self-discipline. We all have dreams, but in order to make dreams come into reality, it takes an awful lot of determination, dedication, self-discipline, and effort. Jesse Owens. You can be the most talented person in the world, but if you have no self-discipline, you will never be successful. I used to believe that success was about luck, until I learned that success was about your habits and self-discipline. Roman philosopher Seneca said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." In order to prepare, you must be disciplined. When we turn on the TV or open a magazine and get exposed to the glitz and glamour, some of us assume that the rich and famous just got picked out of the crowd and became successful. Or we assume it's because of their looks, or because they have contacts in the industry. But most of these people were training hard behind the scenes before making their first appearances on screen. Take Venus and Serena Williams, for example. They trained for 4 years, 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, before anyone recognized their hard work and dedication. Self-discipline is the main character in the show. Without it, nothing happens. What is self-discipline? According to the Collins Dictionary, self-discipline is the ability to make yourself work hard or behave in a particular way without needing anyone else to tell you what to do. After I became successful, an old friend, I'll call him Jack, contacted me and wanted to know how I did it. We were work colleagues, and on our lunch breaks we would sit and talk about how much we hated our jobs. When we spoke on the phone, that was all we talked about, how much we hated our jobs and what we wished we could be doing instead. He was one of the people I had to cut off. More on that later, when I started getting serious about achieving my goals because I was trying to change my mindset, and he wasn't ready to make the shift yet. Anyway, I don't have anything against the guy, so when he called, I spoke to him. He explained that he was ready to get this show on the road and follow my path to success. I told him what to do, gave him some books to read, and recommended seminars to attend. We hung up the phone, and a week later he called again, this time asking me to write out a program for him to follow, because he'd tried to get through all the material I gave him, but he just couldn't seem to figure it out. When I asked him how many chapters of each book he had read, it turned out that he'd skimmed through all of them, but had only read 2 chapters because he's not much of a reader. Okay, get the audiobooks then, and listen to them on your way to work, I advised. I told him I would not be creating a program for him, and that he needed to read the books for himself. The next week he called back, saying it was taking him too long to listen to the audiobooks, and could I just create a program for him? I said no, and he never called back. The last I heard, he was running around town telling people I thought I was too good for everyone because I wouldn't help him out. Chapter 10. Creating Momentum. Tap into the snowball effect. Keep moving ahead, because action creates momentum, which in turn creates unanticipated opportunities. Nick Vujicic. In cartoons, when a snowball rolls down a hill, it starts off small and grows bigger as it collects more and more snow as it heads to the bottom. Achieving your goals works in the same way. Every year when I made a New Year's resolution to write my book, I kept looking towards the end result. I was so obsessed with making these big changes in my life that I would set an unrealistic goal of writing the book within a couple of months. I didn't think there was any other way to do it. I wanted to make big changes, and I wanted to be perfect. But within a few weeks, I always fell flat on my face, never to recover. The all-or-nothing approach didn't work, and my desire to seek quick results always ended in disaster. What I didn't understand was that consistency is the key to success, and it's one of the most powerful principles I've learned on this journey. The power of consistency. It's not what we do once in a while that shapes our lives, but what we do consistently. Tony Robbins. I'm the type of person who sets a goal today and wants to see it manifest tomorrow, and I think that's the case with most people. I don't like the word consistency because it requires patience, and I don't have much patience. But I have learned that consistency is the key to success, no matter what you want to achieve, because it creates stability. Humans need structure and stability. We want a predictable life, and therefore have a strong desire for automation. When we know it's coming, we don't need to use as much energy, which means we're more likely to do the things we need to do to reach our goals. This boosts momentum and motivation to keep working on our goals. Whatever lifestyle changes you want to make, whether it's your diet, practicing gratitude, or saving for retirement, you will need consistency to effectively implement them and for them to become permanent habits. Whatever you repeat develops into a habit, which is why successful people make success look so easy. It's the norm to them. My favorite football player is Ronaldo. He has tremendous skill with the ball and makes it look so effortless. But Ronaldo has been playing football daily since he was 7 years old. He started his professional career when he was 17, and today he's known as one of the greatest football players of all time. Ronaldo didn't become an expert overnight. He spent 10 years perfecting his craft, and he's still perfecting it, although he is considered one of the best football players in the world. This is what consistency does. It turns you into an expert. I spent many years blaming my parents for my failures in life. This anger intensified the more I learned about how the role of habits plays out in terms of success. I would think to myself, if my parents had realized I was a good writer when I was a child, they could have gotten me into the habit of writing every day, and I probably would have become a successful author many years ago. While I was correct in my assessment of the role my parents should have played in helping to develop my gift, my parents were only capable of giving me what their parents gave them. They didn't know anything. Chapter 11. Friends No More. You can't take everyone to the top. Make friends who force you to level up. Unknown. Unfortunately, when you decide to start working on your goals, it's highly likely that your friends won't be ready to start working on theirs, if they have any. Indeed, according to research, only 3% of the population sets goals. Your friends have put you in a box. They know you for being XYZ, and they expect you to be that way for the rest of your life. They can't imagine you changing, and they don't want you to change, because if you change, you won't have anything in common with them anymore. So they'll do everything in their power to attempt to sabotage your efforts. And if you're not strong enough, you'll let them. Despite the fact that they've spent years complaining to you about how much they hate their life, the moment you start making changes, all of a sudden, they're more than happy with what they've got. The truth is that the majority of people are not satisfied with life, and if they could click their fingers and get what they want, they would. But most people either don't know how to get what they want, or they don't have the self-discipline required to do so. Instead, they waste time dreaming about the life they want and complaining about why they can't have it. Sadly, you'll either end up ditching most of your friends, or they'll ditch you. It will hurt, and you won't want to, but you've got to make a choice. You can either stay at the bottom of the mountain with them, or climb to greater heights. Take your pick. How your friends will distract you. For most of you listening to this, the friends you have right now are going to be a major source of distraction when you start working on your goals. And this is typically how the distractions will manifest. Constant phone calls. In some form or another, I spent several hours a night on the phone to my friends. Whether we were texting, talking, or sending each other clips from social media, we were constantly glued to our phones. And if I didn't respond instantly, there would be a barrage of texts or calls until I did. If one of them posted something on social media and I didn't like the post immediately, I'd get a text or a phone call asking if I'd seen the post. There was no way I could get anything done with this amount of distraction. When I say my phone was constantly pinging, I mean it was literally nonstop. And I was there, staring at my phone with my thumbs ready. Inviting you to go out. When you have no purpose or direction in life, you are always ready for anything. Anytime a friend called to go out, I was down. It didn't matter whether it was during the week and I'd end up getting home late and having just a couple of hours sleep. As long as I didn't miss out on the fun, I was more than happy to tag along. Once you decide to start working on your goals, you will realize how important time is, and you won't be able to go out as much. But because your friends don't understand that extreme sacrifice is a part of the journey to success, they'll keep inviting you out, and will get very offended when you turn the offers down. Chapter 12. Success is not temporary. How to make success a lifestyle. Without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. Benjamin Franklin. As a child, I remember my mom struggling with her weight. She was always going on one diet or another and complaining that she wasn't able to maintain her weight loss. But when we were going on vacation or she had a special event to go to, she would suddenly find the motivation to lose an excessive amount of weight. I found it fascinating that my mother could fluctuate between being extremely fat and extremely slim. I later learned that the reason she couldn't maintain her weight loss was because after she lost the weight, she went right back to consuming an unhealthy diet. The salads were quickly replaced with chips, cookies, and chocolate. The lesson I learned from this was that whatever changes you're trying to make it a lifestyle and not something temporary. Goal attainment should become the norm to you. It should be second nature, like brushing your teeth, not something you do every once in a while. In this chapter, you'll learn how to make success a lifestyle. Why success is not the norm in society. Since the beginning of time, society has dictated to us what it means to be successful. Typically, that means the American dream: money in the bank, a nice home, a vacation home, an attractive partner, and 2.4 children. If that's your idea of success, that's okay. But if not, it's important to define success for yourself before you get caught in the conformity trap. To me, success means having the financial freedom to follow your passions with the main goal of making an impact on the world. Regardless of your definition of success, success is not the norm because the majority of people don't know how to become successful. Success principles are not taught in schools. Therefore, most of us do what we're supposed to do and play it safe, get an education and find a career. However, statistics suggest 85% of people hate their jobs. Why is it that following this script rarely leads to success? Here are some possible reasons. We don't know who we are. In Chapter 1, we discussed self-awareness, because there's so much more to knowing yourself than naming your likes and dislikes. Self-knowledge is about understanding your own beliefs, values, and behaviors. It's about knowing what motivates and inspires you to become the best version of yourself and leaning into those things. When you don't know yourself, it's easy to become a victim of the system and just follow the crowd, because that's what everyone else is doing. But as I found out, and I'm sure you have too, following the crowd leads you into a dead end. There are several things you'll experience when you don't know yourself. These include: you hate your job, your decisions are fear-based, your decisions are obligation-based, you feel lonely, you have bad relationships, you allow people to dictate to you, you don't know what direction you're taking in life, you judge yourself harshly. You may recognize some of these symptoms, but some of them might be unconscious. As you develop more self-awareness, they will become more apparent to you. Chapter 13, Embracing Discomfort. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Brené Brown. In a room packed with 2,000 people, I said, "Raise your hand if any of you here likes feeling uncomfortable." Not one person raised their hand, and I wasn't expecting anyone to, because it is human nature to want to remain in your comfort zone. Stepping outside of it and entering into new territory is terrifying. The brain is even designed to protect you from being uncomfortable. That is why it's so difficult to break bad habits. The subconscious mind programs us to behave in a certain way. But the problem is that the subconscious mind is subjective, and it doesn't reason or think independently. It simply follows the commands given it by the conscious mind. This would be great if we were programmed to behave in ways that benefit us, but the majority of us aren't. Therefore, When we attempt to step out of our comfort zone, the subconscious mind fights the new information being received in order to keep us bound to our old behavioral patterns. But without discomfort, there is no growth. This is just as true physically as it is mentally. When a baby's teeth are coming through, the gums become very painful, and the baby bites things to soothe the discomfort. Or for those wanting to change their body, they won't see a transformation unless they lift heavy weights that cause their muscles to become sore. When I said, "Raise your hand if any of you here want to become successful," every single person in the room raised their hand. Again, I wasn't surprised. I knew the results I would get before asking the questions. But I also knew that the majority of people in the room would never achieve the success they desired because they were not willing to step out of their comfort zone long enough to see the results. And no, I'm not being pessimistic. The statistics prove that even when people know what to do to become successful, they don't do it because they don't have the drive to. Don't be one of those people. Dare to push yourself to the limit, and you'll be amazed at what you can achieve. What is the comfort zone? In the tenderness of your comfort zone, life feels familiar and safe. And for most of you, finding the motivation to leave is extremely difficult. But the longer you remain in your comfort zone, the more opportunities you will miss, and the harder it will become to achieve your goals. It takes a changed mindset and an exceptional amount of willpower to get out of and stay out of your comfort zone. Let's take a look at what the comfort zone is and why most of us find it so challenging to break out of it. When you are not being challenged or tested, psychologically you feel at ease because your mind is not resisting anything. In fact, you feel pretty good. This is your comfort zone. When a person is inside their comfort zone, they don't participate in new experiences or activities that they're not familiar with because it makes them feel as if they are not in control of their environment. Your comfort zone protects you from feelings of stress, anxiety, and pain. There is an atmosphere of uncertainty when a person steps outside their comfort zone, and that uncertainty makes us feel anxious. It is human nature to avoid these negative feelings. Chapter 14, Dealing with Disappointment, the Power of Patience. Disappointment is a temporary detour on the road to success. Zig Ziglar. We've all felt disappointment when things don't happen the way we planned, whether a romantic relationship we thought was going well came to an end, or we didn't get the promotion we spent so much time preparing for. When life sends us a curveball, it's important that we learn how to deal with it, because disappointment is something we will all face at some point. When my first book didn't do well, I can't even begin to describe how disappointed I was. I'd spent months writing the book, speaking positive affirmations about success, and visualizing the moment I got a notification that my book was a #1 bestseller. But that didn't happen. Despite the amount of marketing and preparation I'd done, the book didn't even sell 100 copies. I felt like I'd wasted my time and money on a dream that was never going to materialize. But what kept me going was reading about other people's success stories and how they had persevered despite having so many setbacks. Developing resilience and patience was a part of the process. I had to keep going, and that's exactly what I did. As you embark on this journey of taking the action required to achieve your goals, you are going to experience many disappointments along the way. How you handle them will determine your success. What is disappointment? As I've stated, we are all familiar with disappointment, but it's a lot deeper than we think because of how it relates to our emotions in general. According to the Oxford Dictionary, disappointment means the unhappiness or discouragement that results when your hopes or expectations have not been satisfied, or someone or something is not as good as you had hoped or expected. Research suggests that humans experience 6 basic emotions: joy, sadness, anger, surprise, disgust, and fear. In the 1980s, psychologist Robert Plutchik added anticipation and trust to these basic emotions when he developed the Wheel of Emotions theory. The theory states that human emotions are a lot more complex than the basic emotions when experienced in combination with each other. We can also experience emotions such as awe, admiration, aggressiveness, boredom, and annoyance. Disappointment is one of these combinations that is experienced due to sadness. It's what we feel when we don't get the results we were expecting or when someone lets us down. Disappointment can be a mixture of several emotions such as grief, anger, and bitterness. How to deal with disappointment. Since you are going to experience disappointment at some point, it's important that you learn how to deal with it so it doesn't overwhelm you. Here are some tips. Acknowledge it. The first step in dealing with disappointment is to acknowledge that you are disappointed. Disappointment is an emotion, and it's essential that your emotions are managed effectively, or they will overwhelm you. One of the things emotionally unavailable people do to avoid confronting their emotions is to have no expectation. Chapter 15. One step at a time. Celebrate your small wins. The great victory, which appears so simple today, was the result of a series of small victories that went unnoticed. Paulo Coelho. Successful people don't write down their vision today and see it manifest tomorrow. I know that everyone listening to this understands that, but please, bear with me. I'm trying to make a point. My first book was around 100,000 words long and divided into 12 chapters. I wrote the book over 6 months. I only celebrated when I had finished writing the book. Each completed chapter was a small win, but I didn't celebrate any of those small wins because I didn't see them as wins. As far as I was concerned, the only win worth celebrating was when I had finished writing the book. I'm not mad at myself, because back then I had no idea about the concept of small wins. But what I've learned is that small wins will motivate you to keep going. It's like when you get lost on your way somewhere because you accidentally took the wrong turn. The road suddenly looks unfamiliar. But as you keep driving and turning into different streets, the area starts looking familiar. You notice the old post box on the left, the school further down on the right, and the lamp post outside the church with a piece of red string hanging off it. All of these signs give you hope that you're on the right track and that you'll arrive at your destination shortly. Celebrating small wins motivates you to keep going. Every milestone you complete is a sign that you'll soon reach your goal. Let's talk about celebrating small wins. What exactly are small wins? Arnold Schwarzenegger said, "Look for small victories and build on that. Each small victory, even if it is just getting up 5 minutes earlier, gives you confidence. You realize that these little victories make you feel great and keep going. You realize that being paralyzed by fear of failure is worse than failure." Let's say that one of your goals is to join the 5 a.m. club so you can go to the gym every morning before work. You try for a week, but keep hitting the snooze button, even though you're going to bed earlier to make up for the 2 hours sleep you would lose. One of the things you've learned on your personal development journey is not to take big leaps when it comes to changing your behavior, because the mind can't handle it and will force you back into your old habits. So instead, you decide to break the challenge up into 15-minute increments 1 week at a time. On the first week, you set your alarm clock for 6:45 a.m., And instead of going to the gym, you run on the spot for 15 minutes and then get ready for work. You find this relatively easy to do, and you manage to wake up at 6:45 a.m. for 7 days in a row and jog on the spot for 15 minutes. The second week, you set your alarm for 6:30 a.m. You wake up, jog on the spot, and do some strength training exercises. You manage to do this for a week, and then every week until you're easily waking up at 5 a.m. Instead of giving up on your goal, you trained your body to get used to waking up earlier for 4 weeks, and now you're a pro. Every day you were able to wake up 15 minutes earlier was a small win, because it led to the big win of waking up at 5. Well, folks, there you have it. A little truth bomb about where many of us find ourselves today, disconnected from our dreams, weighed down by stress and negativity. But as was discussed, there's hope. There's a way out of that rut, a path to achieving the success you crave. In the book, The Power of Action, Daniel Walter lays out a clear roadmap for exactly how to do that. The book dives into practical steps for overcoming those self-defeating thoughts, conquering distractions, and finally taking control of your life. You'll learn strategies for goal setting, building self-discipline, and harnessing the power of organization to propel you forward. Are you ready to become an unstoppable powerhouse? Head over to my website at newtonmg.com for more information. Visit Amazon.com and grab your power of the Power of Action, or check out the audiobook on Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. And finally, connect with the author directly on Facebook at Author Daniel Walter. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.